Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Rogers from Craig's Media, where I hope you could start your journey as a software graphic designer, web designer, or UX designer. In this video, I'm going to be taking you through how you can get started with measuring the return on investment, or what they call ROI, on user experience design. So how do you measure the impact of your designs, and how do you tell that your designs are actually helping the organization you're working for to meet its specific goals that it has set? In this video, I'm going to show you how you can start measuring that specific impact, or starting to measure user experience design, and getting to know how accountable you can be while you are designing. So guys, stick around until the end, where I'll be showing you the figurative way. That will be in part 2, where I'll be showing you how you can start quantifying quantitatively how much you add onto a specific organization. So guys, stick around until the end. So yeah, this is actually part of our design learning sessions that usually happen on Fridays. So I know you guys are aware of that. We had actually paused a little bit because of the workload and all of that. But regardless, we do have to find time to figure out different ways of contributing to our learning, because learning is actually a process that never ends. You have to learn, unlearn, relearn, together with learning again, and repeating the process. So learning is a process, and I'm someone who is so much interested in getting to actually relearn specific things uh, in order to come up with specific ways of dealing with things. But nonetheless, today I want to take you through this topic. I don't know if you guys have actually ever thought of it. Have you guys ever thought of like measuring user experience or measuring its impact? I want to first of all hear from you guys. What's your take on measuring the return on investment, or sort of like figuring out what can the designs we make bring on the table eventually. So yeah, that is today's question, and we want to just discuss as usual, because I believe in discussing. So actually, what actually intrigued this sort of like discussion is from the past, as we've been trying to figure out how we can actually start embracing user experience design, some of its principles, which actually include usability design, or usability testing, um, which actually sometimes informs how you actually make decisions. At the end, or at the end process, how do you finally come up with the decisions you make? So it's through usability testing, and usability testing is just a step that you take sometimes in order to figure out the return on investment on design. So how much money is being invested in design, and what are you doing as a designer in order to come up with the specific kind of work that is required of you. So that is something I would want us to actually discuss today, and I would want to first of all hear from you. Have you ever thought of it? Have you ever has it ever crossed your mind to sit down and think about how much you're actually contributing to a specific project, or how can you actually sell specific designs, or sell the value of design to a specific stakeholder, or a specific client, or anyone that is interested in design? So those are the questions that should come up in your mind once you're thinking about return on investment. Return on investment is a language that stakeholders usually want to actually speak, because that is where they actually figure out the value that you're actually bringing to that specific project or organization. So, as designers, we should always question ourselves here and there. How much value am I bringing to a specific project? And can I actually quantify this specific value? So, those are the questions we shall be answering in this specific given call or discussion. And it's part one. And in part two, we shall actually go into the figures. Part one is just sort of like an overview of how we can actually measure the impact or measuring how much value does user experience add on to a specific project or organization, as we shall be seeing. This can actually be measured in so many ways. For as long as there is something that you adding that will be impactful uh, to the organization's end goals or and sort of like key objectives that the organization has to realize to make sure that it's actually making impact with whatever it's dealing with. So eventually, return on investment, it's just a figurative representation of how much what you're doing is adding onto a specific thing. So guys, you will find out that in most cases there are methodologies involved in this in measuring user experience return on investment. Now, there are actually so many methodologies, but you'll find out that they are all broken down into these two steps. The first step is measuring the impact of user experience design, because you'll find out that as you measure the impact of your designs, you will turn the matrices that you will use to measure the impact to sort of like reflect the matrices used to measure success of a specific organization or agency. So the idea is you will find out that you need matrices that you can use to measure your design or the effectiveness of your design. And sometimes this actually confuses some people because they ask themselves, how can I actually measure the effectiveness? You can't actually do it at once. It is a long-term process, just like Brandon said. You cannot actually just wake up one day and you're like, oh, I'm actually adding, value or impact to this organization with my designs in just 2 months, or even 3 months, or even 5 months. It's really hard. You have to take time to follow up because it's about relating the results that you got from measuring the impact of a specific design, maybe in a given sprint, with the impact of the redesign of that design in another sprint. So it's a continuous process, and as you go down that lane, you will get into figures now. Guys, some guys start drawing graphs, pie charts to show you, the different ways your designs have been impacting the company's overall goals. Now, I want you guys to actually think about this like in very simple terms. For example, I'm going to show you a specific design as we go on, but think about it in terms of the task-oriented sort of like design process I talked about when we were starting these design learning sessions. I talked about that design process where you design in a task-oriented manner so that you can eventually, analyze how many tasks have you designed for. Then you can start tracking how many steps are involved in completing these tasks. Now, you can analyze the steps taken. You can analyze, how someone feels while they're taking those steps. You can analyze the emotional effect. You can analyze, the number of times they actually come back and take that step. How effective is it? There are so many ways as I'm going to be showing you in this given session. So, guys, after measuring the impact of UX design, you thereafter relate the impact. So, I think it's in this second step where now the analysis comes in. And in our next usability learning session, I'll be taking you through this other step. In this learning session, I'm going to be taking you through this first step. So you'll find out that after measuring the impact, you relate that impact to the organization's sort of like goals or the agency goals. So it's about measuring the impact of design and then getting that impact or getting the matrices and making sure that they reflect to the company goals or objectives or the way the company measures success. Most companies actually measure success through profits. Almost all of them. You find out that 99% of the organization, measure success, or their sort of like key point, the key point that actually indicates success. You know, is related to finance and financial gains. How much money is the company actually bringing in? So the key performance indicator actually for any specific organization sometimes is related to the profit. Even some non-profit organizations actually, once you uncover, their main goal under the hood, you find out that they make profit somehow under the organization or through the organizations. So you have to make sure that the impact of your designs kind of relates to how much or how easy or how can an organization increase its revenue. How can it use the designs you've made to increase its revenue, to cut costs, to improve performance of given specific sort of like activities, in different sectors, because their company is serving different sectors. You find out that most organizations, their key performance indicator is increasing, employee performance. For example, every HR, one of our key performance indicators, as I've so far seen, is to increase employee performance through giving them these different features that they can access to make sure that they access different employee related benefits for working for specific organizations, like leaves, like salary advance, accessing their pay slips, payroll, etc, etc. So that sort of like human resource management system that is cloud based is just meant to make sure that the HR and the employee are working seamlessly together. They share information, they share requests, and they work in a correlative manner. So if at all their performance increases, then we can measure that using the features they use to improve their performance. And these features will be designed by designers, and this is where we actually measure, the return on investment. So guys, that is what we shall be going through. Now, moving on, we are going to look at how to measure user experience design. And you will find out that there are so many ways you can do this. Even right now, you guys are doing it, just like you explained. You're already doing it. It's just a matter of making sure that you focus your energy in the right direction so that you do this with sort of like principles that have been researched about by organizations. For example, Google has its framework called the HART framework. I'm going to be taking you through this HART framework. And then the Nelson Norman Group, which is actually led by Don Norman. They came up with what they call benchmarking. You benchmark your designs with other matrices or other designs or other ways of measuring, user experience design that are being used by organizations that relate to your organization or by service providers that relate to, the service you are actually also providing or your competitors. So, guys, as we move on, we shall be looking at these two ways of measuring user experience design. So, as we go through these specific ways, relate to them, and then make sure that you fix yourself within maybe these systems together with the different ways you've been working so that you can find something that actually works for you. Honestly, I've also haven't been working like this as of March, but ever since I actually found out these frameworks and these systems. For example, benchmarking is actually a process. It's not something that you just do at once. The hard framework, as you can see, it's a framework. It's not something you just do at once. A framework is something you follow for a specific period of time and you adjust it in a manner that actually fits what you're doing. So, guys, moving on, I want to first of all take you through um, Google's HART framework. Now, the HART framework, it's HART is just a short form, and this is the different words that are in that specific short form. You'll find out that Google has invested a lot of money into doing research, especially user experience research, because to them, as I've been telling you, user experience is key to them as an organization because everything they do relies on user experience. It's how people feel, it's how they adopt, the engagement, the task success, the retention. So they found out that, even though we do have these small processes we use to measure our sort of like user experience, sort of like design process or our designs, the UI designs we come up with. Sometimes we do have matrices we use, just like you've told us, plus other ways like relating to other designs, asking friends, asking potential users, testing our designs amongst ourselves, testing the designs within the organization, together with other very small ways of measuring the impact or measuring user experience design. So, guys, Google actually made research and they came up with this framework. H stands for happiness, E stands for engagement, A adoption, R retention, T is for task success. Now, how does this work? Someone can actually be asking, how does it work? How does it work really? Now, here is how it works. For example, if at all there was an imaginary company that has actually hired you as a user experience designer or a user experience consultant. This company can be called Flash Food Delivery. It's a food delivery service that actually delivers food around the city for different restaurants, cafes, together with hotels. Now, it might contact you and it gives you, a contract of actually coming up with a specific form that its clients can use to order for specific given items, food items around the city. Now, as a designer, you might be tasked to show them how this design is actually going to add revenue to them as a company. How can they use this design to make sure that they, eventually, get multiple orders, all over the city, because you find out that there are so many delivery systems and delivery companies around the city, and sometimes we as designers, it's now upon us to make sure that the companies we work for stand out and give value to the end consumer that other competitors cannot actually give them. So that is where we shall stand out as designers and make the products we actually work on stand out. Now, you might be asked, how can you sell this specific design? Or they've given you this request, and this is how the end result should look like. But how are you going to convince them that this end result is actually going to work for them? With time, of course, not just at once. So this is where these frameworks actually come in, where you have to measure the value you will eventually come up with in a specific given period of time. Now, guys, this is where you get to answer your questions. For example, how can my designs reflect that specific value that it brings to this specific organization, or it adds to the end result or the end goals of this specific organization? How can my designs actually do that? So this is where you actually get to answer these questions by using this framework. Now, how do you use this framework so that you can sell yourself as a designer to this organization and make sure that you can let them know that as you design this future for them, it will eventually enable them to get more orders to deliver specific items around the city. Now, this is an example, and this is a very simple example. This can actually go as deep as you want it to go. You can look at an entire project. I've only looked at a specific feature right here. A feature to order for food. So you can actually go as deep as looking at a specific project, an entire project. For example, you can have maybe an HR system for doing specific things. You can have an education platform, and you can, use this framework, the HEART framework, to come up with different ways that you can convince these stakeholders that once they invest maybe in your agency, or once they invest in you as a designer, then your output will actually benefit them, and it will be bringing more revenue to that specific organization. So guys, the next thing I want to actually take you through after I've given you this same example is to continue. So after you've gotten this request, this is how you would maybe use this framework to come up with a step-by-step process that you can use to maybe sell yourself as a user experience designer to this specific company, so that it can give you this specific job of designing this future so that its clients can actually order food through their application. Now, guys, now for you to actually use this specific framework, you have to have specific intentions. That is why I first showed you this specific screen, so that you can get to know that you need an angle through which you are going to use this specific framework. Now, for us, we've only taken a future, and you can fit this specific feature in this framework this way. Now, this framework right here gives you these different ways of, listing the different sort of like properties that will show you how you're going to achieve these different sections of the framework. Now, because this framework is broken down into these specific areas that actually show you how your designs can be fed or can fit into these specific matrices. So these are like matrices, if I can say. These are like matrices that you can use to determine if your specific design is impactful. For example, let me just give an overview before I can actually go deep into explaining these specific items one by one. Now, an overview of this is, for example, using this specific feature, you can use this framework to determine if at all the feature is actually bringing any joy to the specific users. Now, I think you can see. Once you have designed this specific feature, you can determine through surveys if at all it has brought joy to your specific users. I think you can see. Now, you can determine the impact of your designs through doing surveys, different surveys. You can ask someone, what is your satisfaction? What's your satisfaction rate? Now, you can see this specific metric, happiness, has got properties that determine how you can measure it. Here is the metric. Happiness is the metric. You have to come up with a goal that is going to help you achieve happiness. If at all it's the metric you're going to use to measure the return on investment on a specific design. Now, if at all you're going to measure your future, this future that you're going to come up with using happiness as a metric, then you have to make sure that you look out for signals. Now, signals is now a property of this metric that you're going to use to measure the success of this specific future for ordering for food around the city for this company. So, guys, I think you can see you have to just sort of like relate these things, and this is actually the simplest framework you can use to measure user experience design. Now, if at all you've chosen happiness, you can say maybe a goal for this is maybe for users to feel like the future is unique. You can set that as a goal. Now, you can use your designs to achieve this goal. Are you seeing? This is when you can start measuring. You need a goal. Now, after getting this goal, you need a signal, something that shows that, hey, you are about to achieve this goal. One of the goals is, one of the signals to this is, a satisfaction rating from a survey. You can do a survey on the users and see their satisfaction or satisfactory rate. Now, these surveys include those sort of like stars. After maybe consuming a feature or maybe ordering for food, they bring you those 5 stars in a box, and you have to maybe click 5 or 3 or 1 to rate the feature or to rate the service. You can use that to actually come up with a way to measure the success of the design. The higher the number of 5 stars, this shows that your design is actually doing good and people are actually happy with using the design to consume the service. Now, you have to actually remember that we are actually talking about design in our case, but this can actually go as deep as understanding that whoever is actually delivering this service has to comply with how good the experience is on the application. So yeah, as Flash food delivery, it might be working with other restaurants that will actually get this order and then deliver the actual food. So those other companies also have to comply and also have to be providing very good user experiences in terms of um, providing quality sort of like food that is clean, tasty, and properly packaged, so that that experience gotten from consuming such well packaged, tasteful food diffuses into the experience of actually ordering for that food, because we do not want to kill the experience of the user. From having a very good experience on the platform, then killing it with delivering poor quality food to them. So these organizations have to work in a correlative way, or in a way that actually correlates together, so that they can actually give that overall good user experience as a whole, together together with the customer experience. So user experience at the end of the day, it's and it entails quite a lot of properties. You'll find out that it starts from the employee experience all the way to the user experience, and in the middle there are other, experiences like the partner experience. There are other experiences. People that actually support the project, the support staff, user experience. So user experience is actually, it gets really complicated once you actually leave the design bracket. And that's why some companies actually have the quality assurance department. Yeah, you'll find out some companies actually do have such departments under their organizations to monitor the quality of service they give to their employees together with their specific users or clients. So, guys, moving on, you'll find out that the other metric you can use is engagement. You can determine the success of your designs using the engagement. How do people engage with your design? Considering this specific feature right here, if I told you to design it, after designing it, you do have to measure how people actually engaging with it. Now, this can actually really determine, it can actually depend or determine uh, on specific things, because you'll find out that sometimes once you actually select this as your specific given metric, then it is going to determine if at all people are actually going to just engage with your specific feature or design without maybe the other emotion of happiness, which was the first metric. Now, just like I told you, these matrices will work for you depending on what you're measuring. You can measure happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task success. For engagement, it will be the ease with which people use this specific feature, for example. Now, this will depend on the metric you've used. If at all you've selected engagement, then you have to track. Now, you can track using this specific metric. Now, these matrices right here are sort of like the statistics that come from using, uh, these specific matrices, which are qualitative. So how you can think of this is, have a qualitative metric, which is happiness, but keep it in mind that you can also measure this happiness through ratings. Now, you can also measure engagement, because you can pick engagement as a qualitative sort of like metric, then you measure it, you know, through, tracking the time spent, making a specific order on this specific feature that I showed you right here. If I told you to design it. Now, you can track, now the signals for this are the amount of time spent engaging with this feature. Now, this framework is very, very flexible, by the way. You can either decide to use it qualitatively or quantitatively. Qualitatively, you just select your goal and then you look out for the specific signals. Then you can start matching your designs. As you redesign, you evaluate your goal and then you look at the signal. Now, if you want to dive deep into the numbers, that is when you look at this other property, which is the metric. You go into the figures. Now, the other metric you can use is adoption. You can actually see how many new users actually find it easy to order for food or to order for any item using this specific feature that you've designed. So I think you can see. Now, you can see this by the number of times new users use the new feature in a day. If at all you're going to measure this qualitatively, you can actually figure this out by finding out how many times or how many new users are ordering through this specific feature. Now, you can actually also go down and measure this qualitatively using the number of new orders that actually come through this specific new feature that you're designing. Now, retention, you can also use this metric for users to continue to use the feature. You can set as you can set that as a goal. You can be like, I want, people to continuously use this specific feature for ordering, to order. And if at all it's the only feature that is the application, then that means that you have to always track the new users together with the old users. And for the old users, how many times do they use this feature? As opposed to the features of your competitors. So you also have to look out, if at all my user is not ordering through my application, whose application are they using at that specific time? So you can actually compare the designs of that competitor with your designs in order to come up with better designs using this retention metric. Now, guys, you have to always make sure that you look out for signals. This signal for retention is, the number of times users have continuously used the feature. So if at all, people continuously use this feature to order for food, maybe on a daily basis, or maybe on a daily, someone orders for food using this feature like continuously, maybe for breakfast, lunch, supper, or dinner, you can track that against the designs. How many times are they doing it? You can track that. Then you can redesign and then compare with the old design. It's about comparing over time. You can compare after 2 weeks, after 3 weeks, depending on the usage of your specific digital platform or application or any system. So, guys, always feel free to give time to your users so that they can find ways to come up with feedback for you, because through measuring how far you've gone with your designs, that is when you can actually come up with these specific matrices, and you'll be able to measure the return on investment. So guys, the last metric is task success. Yes, guys, task success. Now, this actually can be measured by the number of people who actually add a specific order to the cart. For task success, the goal can be the number of people that can be used, or the number of people that can complete ordering or adding a specific item or food item to the cart. Task success, for the signals is, the number of successful completions. How many people can successfully order for an item using this feature? You can get the number of people that do that successfully, and then, keep on tracking the number of people. If at all the number is low, then your design is questionable. They are finding it hard to complete this process. If the number is high, then that means the process is easy and your design is actually adding to the end goal of making sure that people request for food using this specific feature. So guys, and the metric for this is order completion. You can also track the number of orders and relate them to your design. If the number of orders are high, then that means that your design is actually working. Now, you have to keep it in mind that for you to actually be able to measure return on investment for your designs using this framework, there are other forces that have to work together to make sure that your designs are actually a success. This includes other teams in the organization, actually almost all the teams and departments, especially the sales and marketing department, the development, and together with the technical support and that supports sort of like team, because these teams have to work closely with the users or the clients. Other teams, for example, the customer success teams, together with the customer or customer experience sort of like teams or designers that actually design customer experiences, or other people, they have to work in correlation together with the marketing, the development, other designers, plus other stakeholders. It is sort of like a joint mission to make sure that your designs are a success. As a designer, you cannot have all the power in your hand to make sure that you make sure that these designs are a success. This power is actually distributed amongst other team members. So for you to have it in your hands is really impossible unless you're going to be the one to design, develop, and sell the product. But as a designer, you have to make sure that you are at the forefront of making sure that the impact your designs will have in the market, so that you can design better. This is why getting to know the impact of your designs, can help you make better design decisions, so that once your designs hit the marketplace, they are not sort of like hindering these other teams, so that the organization can actually eventually realize success. So you have to make sure that your designs contribute to the overall goal of the organization, so that you can be able to measure their return on investment. To repeat myself, you have to make sure that the goals of your designs match the goals of the overall organization, for you to be able to measure their return on investment. So, guys, moving on, benchmarking. And now, benchmarking is, it's a way of tracking user experience designs and tracking how effective they are. I think this process was developed by the Nelson Norman Group, which is headed by Don Norman. Don Norman is one of the practitioners, the user experience practitioners there. So, guys, you'll find out that benchmarking, you're already doing benchmarking somehow, based off of its definition, because it's about relating these things. And I've been talking about it because it kind of relates to this other framework. But for it, what it does is it's about evaluating a product or services user experience by using matrices to gauge its relative performance against a meaningful standard. Now, you have to have a meaningful standard in order for you to measure user experience design impact. Now, you have to make sure that there is something you relate to. This something will actually depend on where the organization or that specific agency you're working for is. Now, you'll find out that most organizations are startups, and you'll find out that those startups are actually building something that is already in existence. This means they have competitors. Now, you can use your competitors as a standard to make sure that you relate your designs with their designs and measure the value your designs are actually adding, that the other designs might not be actually having or adding to the specific market that both of you are actually competing for. So, guys, I think you can see, you can also use this metric. You can benchmark, you can relate, you can compare. Benchmarking is comparing. It's just making sure that you have a comparison between two things. You weigh, just like you can compare your designs with designs on Dribble, on Behance, with other sort of like designers out there. So, guys, you can use this specific metric to measure, the impact of your specific designs or your user experience process. Now, guys, you have to understand that benchmarking, it's something that you're already practicing. It's already something that you're already practicing, and that it usually happens either at the beginning or end of your design process. You'll find out that once you complete a design, you compare it with some other design or some design standard out there that is really good. Now, you can also compare your design using designs of your competitor, or or something that can make sure that you improve that specific design with time, and that this metric will also change with time, because you can only track this with time. So, guys, I think you can see, benchmarking usually happens either when you are evaluating your designs, when you finish designing, or when you're going to start designing, when you're defining the type of designs you want. You compare what you want with what is already there, or a specific standard that is already followed, or maybe a specific design conversion, or maybe a specific way that is already working. And there is maybe a qualitative sort of analysis that was done on that design that shows that it really works. So, guys, I think you can see this is like the typical design process that we all follow. If at all you don't follow it, then I'm quite sure that you follow something relating to this. It's from the NN group, the Nelson Norman group, the ones that came up with this benchmarking sort of like user experience evaluation process. So, guys, that is it for today. I just wanted to take you through these two ways you can use to measure or evaluate, your designs. And, in our other learning session, I'm going to be taking you through this other part of relating the impact. So after you've measured, after you've actually designed this and maybe redesigned it, after you've gotten, the specific matrices or the specific figures that you've gotten from relating the two designs, the old design and the new design, what changes has the new design brought that the old design didn't have? You can get those numbers in terms of how many downloads, how many orders have been made by this specific feature that you'll be designing. How many new people are actually comfortable with it? Does that feature actually make them happy? You get those numbers and then find an organizational goal. It might be revenue oriented or anything else, but just find it so that you can measure, this specific metric that you've gotten from your design with that specific metric. Now, if at all this organization of ours, the Flash Food Delivery, was so much interested in making, its users happy while they are using this feature, then you are going to use this specific metric to make sure that you measure the enticement your redesign adds to the old design. This can be the rating of this specific feature. People can actually rate your feature. The higher the ratings, the higher, the success of you, the higher the chances of you actually being able to measure the success of this specific design, because you will get that specific metric of maybe high ratings together with this organization's end goal of making sure that they make their new users or maybe their overall users happy. So you get that happiness metric together with this very high number of ratings, which indicate happiness. And once you relate that, then you're able to actually determine or measure the return on investment figuratively. Now, that is what we shall be doing in our next learning session. So guys, that was it. We can now jump into the questions.